Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Global Conversation Lecture. Today's, as we continue our celebration of UWI's 75th anniversary. Today, our topic is celebrating 75 years, former challenges, hard choices, new challenges, ongoing changes. And our esteemed presenter is the perfect person to go through this with us. She was here from the beginning of the Open Now Global Campus. She's a former deputy principal of the UWI Open Campus. And the information that she will share this evening is going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. What we will be doing shortly, we will have a video on the 75th anniversary, of course, some celebration, which then I will move into welcoming. Then we will go to our host, our esteemed presenter. And after the lecture, the presentation, we will then have question and answers. So what I'm asking you to do, please, is to write down all the wonderful questions you're going to have for our presenter, and we will take it at the end. Once again, good evening, everyone, and we will start. I'm waiting on the video. Sorry, everyone. Oh, we seem to be having a little issue with our video this evening. Okay, no problem. We will try and see if we can do this in afterwards. I'm not sure what is happening, but you know, all that means is that we move quickly into our presentation, which we're all anxiously waiting to hear. So this evening, as I said before, our topic is celebrating 75 years, former challenges, hard choices, new challenges, ongoing changes. This lecture will recount UWI's evolutionary journey from its inception to the rebranding of the Open Campus to Global Campus. This discourse is situated within the framework of former challenges which the university has faced. Some of us have been here not from the beginning, but we've been here and watched it and have read about it. Some hard choices which it has made, and the resulting changes which have taken place during its metamorphosis from a small single campus entity to today's large, complex 5-campus, multi-purpose organization. It looks specifically at the evolving outreach orientation of the university and briefly interrogates the implications of rebranding. Grounded in the present, the lecture looks at current societal challenges, financial, which includes the magic of doing more with less, environmental, climate change, health and wellness of society, especially the aging, and global, including operating within one world civilization, and also technology, AI. This includes our artificial intelligence, our biomedical technology, and big data. This lecture will argue that in order to accelerate the path to progress, slow the process of getting to catastrophe, and even alter the trajectory of change. Education is perhaps the single most important tool in this survival toolkit, and the UWI has a key role to play in the Caribbean. With all of this excitement, I'd like to introduce to you Professor Emeritus Vivienne Roberts. Some of us know her from being deputy principal, others know her in other capacity. Professor Roberts was born in Jamaica. Her higher education began at the University of the West Indies, Mona, where she studied chemistry, botany, and zoology, earning a Jamaica government exhibition and graduating with first-class honors degree. She received a diploma in education from the UWI, a master's in educational leadership from the University of Tennessee, and a PhD from the University of the West Indies. She has spent her entire life in education. For 2 years, she taught advanced level biology, zoology, and botany at Immaculate Conception High School, a Catholic school in Jamaica. She lived and worked in Barbados since 1974, beginning with a brief stint as a teacher at West St. Joseph Secondary School. She joined the Barbados Community College staff in 1975 and served as an assistant tutor, and after 9 years became head of the Division of Health Sciences. In 1991, she moved on to the University of the West Indies, coordinating a United States Agency for International Development funded development training program for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. At the completion of that assignment, she served as a project officer in the newly established tertiary level institution unit at the UWI. Professor Roberts was involved in regional education organizations. She was an active member and resource person for the Association of Caribbean Tertiary Institute. She served as vice president of the Association of Higher Education Administrators. She was also active in the Caribbean Area Network for Quality Assurance in Tertiary Education and was made an honorary member on her retirement. In 2008, she was appointed the first deputy principal of the newly established the UWI Open Campus. Her publications include articles, reports, monograms, and books in the areas of higher education, quality assurance, and educational leadership. She was conferred with the title of professor in 2009 and with the title of Professor Emerita upon her retirement from UWI in 2014. Since her retirement, she continues to be extremely busy, writing and publishing a number of books, and it's a very long list, and I encourage everyone to look and see after this lecture the magnitude of what she has published thus far. Please help me welcome Professor Emerita Vivienne Roberts this evening as she go through and speak with us about as she continued to speak with us about celebrating 75 years. Professor Roberts, over to you. Your mic. Are you ready, Professor Roberts? Yes. Okay, over to you, Prof.
Colleagues, friends, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, greetings. It is my distinct pleasure and privilege to be a presenter in the Global Conversations Lecture Series in recognition of the University of the West Indies' 75th anniversary. Before beginning the lecture, I invite you to join me in observing a moment of silence to honor the memory of a few dearly departed colleagues with whom I had the pleasure of working in the outreach sector. either in the form of Board for Non-Campus Countries and Distance Education or the Open Campus. They're Edwin Brandon, Stuart Marshall, and Jeffrey Blunt, Howard Fergus, Beverly Steele, and Edith Bellot, Jeanette Grant Woodham, Janitha Long, and Louis Whittington. May they rest in peace. As a 3 times graduate of the University of the West Indies, Mona and Cave Hill campuses, a UWI employee for 23 years, and a UWI pensioner for 9, I should have a lot to say. However, I will allow my enthusiasm to be tempered not only by my better judgment, but also by the allotted time, as well as by the perceived limits of your interest and attentiveness. As was indicated, it is my intention to examine with you UWI's evolutionary journey from its inception to the rebranding of the Open Campus. I will situate the discourse within the framework of the former challenges which it has faced, some hard choices which it has made, and the resulting changes which have taken place during its metamorphosis from a small single campus entity to today's large, complex 5-campus multipurpose organization. Grounded in the present, it is my intention also to look at current societal challenges and their implications for ongoing institutional change. This year, 2023, the University of the West Indies celebrates 75 years. Whether that number is considered 3/4 of a century or the diamond anniversary, it is a relatively long period. Compared to the world's ancient universities of the 12th to 16th centuries, the institution is yet an infant. Additionally, the Times Higher Education classification would label it a golden age or young university post-World War II. Viewed against the background of the 19th century teachers and specialist colleges in this Anglophone Caribbean, UWI is still quite young. However, compared to the national colleges, community colleges, and national universities in the region established since the 1960s, UWI is a mature institution. Its maturity has been achieved not only by the number of years of its existence, but also by the institution's experience in self-management, its relationship within the international arena, and its adaptation to the many challenges which it has encountered in a diverse, far-flung, and rapidly changing regional environment, where the only constant has been change itself. When asked to present this lecture, it occurred to me how apt. Coincidentally, I too will reach my 75th year on my next birthday in 2024. So the number 75 resonates with me. Whether the number is viewed as 7.5 decades or 70 years and 10 plus 5, it is a big number for a human being. This number is just about the average life expectancy of 75.6 years for females across the world, and 5 years below the prevailing number of 80 years for Barbados. Not unlike the UWI, my 75 years, if achieved, will have been shaped also by many challenges, multiple choices, and myriad changes. The UWI's 75th anniversary tagline, Rooted, Ready, Rising, is interesting. As an avid gardener, rooted conjures up in my mind the idea of solid, established, and anchored. I know, though, that a tree, although rooted, continues to grow not only above but also below ground. Perhaps the UWI's roots are massive fibrous roots expanding continually, radiating from a common base, growing and developing, anchoring and nourishing a living, evolving institution. It is true to say that each decade has brought new challenges, adding in many cases to those which have pre-existed. In my opinion, the most important ones have been, firstly, balancing colonial, internal, national, and regional political forces. Secondly, leveraging the distance education opportunities emerging from technology application, progressing from print, radio, telephone, satellites, computers, television, and the internet. Thirdly, creating novel financial models and managing budgets, especially in times of austerity. In this presentation, the 75-year UWI journey will be divided into 4 phases. Phase 1, the 1940s to 1960s, balancing colonial, national, and regional forces. Phase 2, the 1970s and 80s, balancing internal forces against outreach to the non-campus countries. Phase 3, the 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s, embracing the internet. And finally, phase 4, the 2020s, pursuing a global agenda. I suspect that my audience will include adult listeners of all ages with interest in various disciplines, and not surprisingly, with different tastes for food and wine. Let us think of this lecture as a meal, the appetizer, the main course, and the dessert. The older, more historically inclined audience may find the first course engaging. And in memory of Ed Brandon, I will serve you a dry wine. A warning, unlike most meals, this appetizer will take the longest time. I invite my younger audience to be patient and await the more contemporary main course, accompanied by semi-sweet wine. Believe me, the end is coming with a dessert of light-hearted stuff and sweet wine, which I hope all will savor. So let's get on with the appetizer, the history. From a colonial perspective, the opportunity to divest the burden of the self-ruling colonies would have been a likely trigger in 1943 to cause Britain's Secretary of State for the Colonies to invite the vice-chancellors of the UK universities to assist in the development of colonial universities, including ours. It was reported that at that time, the majority of the rank and file in this Caribbean region was frankly uninterested. Governors and government officials were divided. Many were cautious about change, and all were anxious about financing. European residents remained strongly tied to their own universities. On the other hand, the Moyne Commission reported that regionally, there had been marked expansion in secondary schooling, continually rising expenditure on education, and an expanding middle class demanding greater participation in government. Professionals were pressing for increased number of graduates. The directors of higher education were convinced that change was needed. What was up for discussion, though, was what kind. In his interview with the Irving Commission, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Eric Williams was not supportive of a residential college. He advocated for a more utilitarian, mass-oriented institution geared towards economic investment and including adult education. He was dismissive of locating it in Barbados because of the country's size, or in Guyana because of its location on the South American continent. The toss-up between Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica favored Jamaica because of its size, population, economic development, and political consciousness. The hard choice made was to establish the University College of the West Indies, UCWI, on the Royal Charter as a College of London University in 1948, as a residential institution in Jamaica, but also with an extramural department for outreach to the other countries. Overseen by a council, UCWI was supported initially by the British government, mainly for capital expenditure, but by the West Indian governments for recurrent expenditure and also for future development. Students would pay fees, assisted by scholarships. Institutional quality would be conferred by and maintained under the umbrella of London University. There were only 33 students enrolled in medicine. It is true to say that pulled by perceived regional development needs and by aspirations for social advancement, pushed by the colonial masters who were battered by the economic depression of the 1930s and the ravages of the Second World War, and inclined as well towards the West Indian Federation, the choice was made for UCWI to become a unitary institution with a mission which included provision of access to quality higher education for the entire region. The first 14 years was a period of growth and consolidation, with the Institute of Social and Economic Research introduced in 1948, followed by the Faculty of Natural Sciences in 1949, Faculty of Arts in 1952, Education Department and Faculty of Social Sciences at Mona, 1956 and 1961, respectively. The West Indies Federation had been established in January 1958 and was struggling to deal with its own governance and administration issues. Its policies, especially those related to taxation and centralization, as well as its physical location. Its demise in May 1962 was hastened by Jamaica's withdrawal from the Union in 1961 and assured by the country's subsequent independence in August 1962. Trinidad's declaration that 1 from 10 leaves naught and the failure of the Little Eight, Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean islands, to get off the ground represented severe blows to emerging regionalism and fodder for growing nationalism. The latter was evidenced by the morphing of the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture into the Faculty of Agriculture at a new St. Augustine campus in 1960, and the establishment in 1961 of the Faculty of Engineering, also in Trinidad and Tobago. This expansion and consolidation led the CWI to become an independent university in 1962, by which time Barbados was also well on the way to the establishment of its own campus, initially at the Harbour site in 1963 and later at Cave Hill in 1968. Guyana withdrew from UWI in 1962 and established its own university in 1963. And so the Big Four had asserted their nationalism. However, regionalism was still alive. As mentioned earlier, the extramural department or outreach arm of UWI was headquartered in Jamaica, but dispersed throughout British Honduras, now Belize, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, British Guiana, now Guyana, and the Leeward and Windward Islands. When the St. Augustine and Cave Hill campuses were established, the resident tutors' offices became university centers, and soon after, between 1967 and 1970, centers were established in the individual Windward and Leeward Islands. Phase 2. The dispersed university centers were multi-purpose, offering training in adult education, cultural subjects, as well as public lectures and refresher courses. They encouraged intellectual thought and promoted objective inquiry. Fergus, in the 2007 book Breaking Down the Walls, reported that as extramural offerings, music and languages were taught from the radio unit at Mona between 1972 and 1973. The financial crisis of the 1970s exacerbated internal tensions among member countries. Throughout the decade, there were ongoing squabbles about governance, administration, and financing. A memorandum from the St. Lucia government stated, and I quote, "This is the only basis on which one can justify further expenditure of the taxpayers' dollars on the UWI. The benefits must be seen to merit the cost. The present location of UWI must not be allowed to cloud the possibilities for expansion and development elsewhere in the Caribbean," end of quote. Trinidad and Tobago was also insistent that, and I quote, "there should be some sort of restructuring of UWI to devolve more authority to the campuses and reduce what they regarded as university bureaucratic, fiscal, and faculty control by the central administration in Mona." Responding in 1982, the University Council made the hard choice to restructure the institution such that the host government took more direct financial responsibility for its campus. Feeling sidelined, the non-campus countries demanded better representation and succeeded in getting the establishment of the little-known Office of University Services, OUS, in 1984 to represent their interest. It was headed by a pro-vice-chancellor and headquartered at Cave Hill. It is noteworthy that the UE provision was always challenged by power struggles, geographical separation, limited physical spaces, high cost, small population units, and increasing demands by a diversified clientele. However, repeatedly, it made hard choices, finding a way to reinvent itself. Another outreach initiative emerged in 1977 from the Faculty of Social Sciences at the Mona campus, allowing students outside of UWI to challenge their exams, that is, follow printed course materials, pursue studies on their own, and write the UE exams. The St. Lucia, Dominica, and Antigua Schools of Continuing Studies, former extramural centers, seized the opportunity to offer local face-to-face tutoring and to administer the examinations locally at the sites. In the 1980s, an important opportunity for outreach presented itself. In 1982, enabled by emerging technology and under the directorship of Professor Gerald Layler, the university instituted a 3-year experimental project, the UWI Distance Education Experiment, called UIDITE. Teaching was delivered by signals traveling via telephone lines, microwave circuits, tropospheric scatter, and satellite ground stations from UWI Mona to the Eastern Caribbean sites using a cable and wireless hub in St. Lucia. Soon, this arrangement added central audio conferencing to support printed learning materials, aided by local tutoring and occasional country visits by campus-based lecturers. It should be noted that during this phase, hard choices were made internally to restructure government financing of the 3 campuses and regionally to expand outreach to the non-campus countries through establishing the OUS, as well as to introduce both the challenge examinations and UIDITE. Phase 3. In spite of these initiatives, the 1994 report of the Chancellor's Commission on Governance reflected growing concern among the non-campus countries about equitable access to the programs and services of the UWI. Notably, the internet had become available. Responding to the access challenge and grasping the technology opportunity in 1996, the Council made the hard choice to make UWI a dual mode institution. The Board for Non-Campus Countries and Distance Education was established and provided an umbrella covering 3 centrally located outreach arms of the UWI: the Tertiary Level Institutions Unit, the School of Continuing Studies, and the UWI Distance Education Center, UIDEC. The TLIU worked with the national colleges in the region towards articulation of their programs with UWI, as well as franchising of UWI's programs to them. The work of the individual dispersed schools of continuing studies was coordinated by the central school. UIDEC had a mandate to offer distance education certificate and degree programs to all contributing countries. For program development, it drew on the resources of faculties across the entire university to jointly develop printed packages while it coordinated synchronous learning activities. UIDEC was a department headed by a director, was faculty-driven and technology-assisted. Its program delivery was supported by the in-country sites of the School of Continuing Studies. This represented a tripartite partnership, campuses, UIDEC, and SCS. The role of UIDEC was a coordinating one, and as experienced in many partnerships, implementation challenges and control issues arose. In an attempt to address these challenges, after 4 years of operation and at the beginning of the 21st century, recommendations were made in 2001 for UIDEC to build its capacity in adult and distance education so that it could play a greater leadership role, have greater responsibility for the quality of courseware, and greater autonomy within a federal campus community. In this way, UIDEC would become more faculty-supported rather than faculty-driven. Forces of globalization were also being felt. The internal discourse intensified, and non-campus countries continued to demand more. UWI's mission of provision of access to high-quality research and education on one hand, as well as its member countries' growing demand for more offerings by distance education on the other, begged for an agile response. To many of the leaders at the time, the establishment of the Open Campus in 2008 seemed a hard but appropriate choice. In the UE Strategic Plan of 2007-2012, the Open Campus was mandated to, and I quote, expand the scope, increase the appeal, and improve the efficiency of UWI's service to its underserved communities in the contributing countries and beyond. Its vision was to become UWI's face, open to the world in relation to online and distance education. From the outset, the campus was expected to get startup financing. However, it was committed to becoming eventually self-sustaining, in the interim, relying increasingly less on contributions from governments and more on student tuition and other initiatives. The campus would be mainly virtual, but would have minimal physical accommodation on the existing 3 landed campuses, as well as on off-campus sites in the 3 campus countries, and also at sites in the 12 existing non-campus countries. With neither adequate startup financing, the impressive trappings of a physical campus, nor its own visible slate of academic faculty, and with a different funding model, the Open Campus was unique, and its identity, value, legitimacy, and credibility were difficult to understand and accept, questioned from both inside and outside the university. To work harmoniously amid intercampus diversity, it became necessary to develop and offer standardized online programs guided by a university-wide online policy, including a cost-sharing model. Drafted in 2009, this policy was contentious and remained unsettled. However, in spite of these internal, mainly political and resource issues, the Open Campus, which had become operational in 2008, after its own self-assessment, as well as additional rigorous external scrutiny by local and international experts, was able to gain full accreditation across the region in 2013 and again in 2018. Phase 4. Throughout the 1990s, there was ongoing discussion across the region about the aspirations, evolution, and options of national and community colleges to become colleges of UWI, or independent colleges and universities. It was in 2019 that the government of Antigua convinced the University of the West Indies to make it the UWI's 4th landed and 5th campus at 5 Islands, no pun intended. This can be viewed as a plus, either for regionalism or nationalism, but in any event, as a feather in the cap of a former non-campus country. By the second decade of the 21st century, the UWI had passed through its consolidation and expansion phases, and as stated in its strategic plan, was moving towards reputation building on the global stage. It was continuing to assume the dual role of meeting regional development needs while also establishing its reputation as a significant institution of higher education within the universe of universities. It was in 2022 that UWI achieved its remarkable ranking and rating, and Vice-Chancellor Hilary Beckles proudly reported that, and I quote, "The University of the West Indies now stands in the top 1.5% of universities in the world, up from 3% in the prior year. The rooted and ready UWI had continued to rise." As mentioned before, the Open Campus had a triple challenge. The first, achieving financial sustainability. The second, gaining full, enthusiastic, cross-campus internal acceptance. And the third, assuming shared responsibility for program development and full authority for program delivery within the multi-campus framework. In August 2023, the Open Campus was rebranded the Global Campus. Vice-Chancellor Beckles explained that it would, and I quote, "have its own business school as a for-profit entrepreneurial income-making managed by a private limited liability company, generating income by marketing the university's academic programs to people all over the world in an online format using the excellence and expertise of the traditional Open Campus," end of quote. The second pillar he also posited preserves and makes more efficient the legacy of the Open Campus. A curious observer may interrogate the extent to which the rebranding represents a change in form or substance, name, or nature of the former entity. Optimistically, the name change may be a more nuanced approach to make more explicit the strategic intent and goal of the campus, not just to be open to all, but to be deliberately targeted at the entire world. Additionally, the introduction of the School of Business could be the timely manifestation of a funding instrument, which may represent, firstly, the resolution of the concept of inter-campus resource sharing, secondly, an acceptable mechanism for fundraising and profit sharing, and thirdly, a vehicle for the realization of financial viability for the entity. My questions are, 1, will the rebranding solve the financial issues? And 2, while it seeks to promote geographical outreach, will it also continue to preserve and promote openness to student diversity? Time will tell. Perhaps this change may be considered another hard choice, an opportunity where the UWI Global, following the efforts of UWIDEC and the Open Campus, will be able to achieve in this third iteration the erstwhile elusive credibility, legitimacy, efficiency, and financial viability of which the UWI's online education provision is undoubtedly capable. And now I invite you to partake in the main course and the semi-sweet wine. At 75 years, UWI has declared itself rooted and ready for more new challenges, additional hard choices, and ongoing changes. Looming on the horizon are challenges in the following 5 areas: financial, including the magic of doing more with less; environmental, including climate change; social, including the changing demographics and health and wellness of the society, especially the aging; global, including operating within a one-world civilization; and technological, including artificial intelligence, biomedical technology, and big data. Financial challenges have always been of priority importance, and the institution has continued to be entrepreneurial. Governments have been continually challenged to honor their financial commitments. Tuition fees, grants, public-private sector partnerships, endowments, and for-profit ventures continue to be relentlessly pursued. Social. The demographics of our societies are changing. Life expectancies are increasing. Persons are living longer, but unfortunately, many are saddled with non-communicable diseases, mental health issues, including dementia and Alzheimer's disease, depression, exacerbated by contracting social engagements, shrinking circles of friends, reduced mobility, sleep deprivation, various cancers, and end-of-life matters. Other challenges for the aging include financial wizardry, as one lives in a world of inflation and a fixed income, as well as avoiding irrelevance, possibly through finding engagement and purpose through the development and practice of survival skills. Seniors like myself are challenged to focus on positive thinking, discipline, goal setting, and building relationships with younger friends and relatives. By the year 2030, according to United Nations projections, in Barbados, at least a fifth of the population will be 65 years and older. Climate change. Many accept that the combustion of petroleum products has produced massive amounts of carbon dioxide, which have accumulated in the atmosphere, trapping heat which would have otherwise escaped. The earth warms, ocean temperatures rise, coral reefs and fish die, and glaciers melt. Extremes have come and more are coming: floods, forest and bushfires, heat waves, droughts, superstorms, water shortage, power failures, and social disruption. The entire world has contributed to this, but proportionately less so the countries which are less developed but remain the most vulnerable. Like drowning persons, we are trying to address these issues through mitigation, including the use of alternative energy to replace fossil fuels, greening by planting trees, using smarter industrial techniques, even eating less beef, and lowering our individual carbon footprint by changing our lifestyles. We're also practicing adaptation, including the building of seawalls, adopting new building codes for houses to better resist hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes. We're planting heat-resistant crops and trees, relocating from low-lying areas where possible. In short, we're building resilience and sustainability and suffering while we anxiously urge collective and urgent action internationally. Globalization. The idea of globalization has been around for some time. After the Second World War, the potential for nuclear war and its prevention pointed to a global response to that global threat. In recent decades, globalization emphasized interdependence, aided by agreements and partnerships, the bringing together of the world's economies, cultures, and populations, enabled by cross-border trade in goods and services, as well as the borderless flows of technology, investment, information, and people. The coronavirus pandemic brought home to many of us globalization in action at an individual level. The associated supply chain interruptions showed us how globalization can affect the everyday lives of everyone. Harari's metaphor in his book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, is apt, and I quote, "Each of us is ensnared within numerous all-encompassing spiderwebs, which on the one hand restrict movements, but on the other transmit our tiniest jiggle to faraway destinations. Our daily routines influence the lives of people and animals halfway across the world, and some personal gestures can unexpectedly set the entire world ablaze." End of quote. In your travels, you have no doubt observed that on any continent and in any city, the airports, pharmacies, hospitals, cinemas, libraries, schools, and hotels have a very similar common floor plan and layout. In international discourse, one cannot but notice some shared basic underlying scientific beliefs about matter, energy, time, and space. We must all face the reality, however, that globalization is with us and that it continues to operate on an uneven playing field where developmental currents flow, not in every direction, but mainly from rich to poor and from north to south. Information technology has been with us for many years. Old and young have relied on Alexa and Siri, Amazon's and Apple's digital voice assistants, to find information, give and get directions, and set alarms, for example. We've gotten assistance with household chores, factory assembly and delivery, in manufacturing, parking assistance, augmenting our photographs and paintings, in student registration and record keeping, and also in GPS navigation systems. Googling now provides the answer to all our questions. Artificial intelligence. It is not an overstatement that the new epoch changer is artificial intelligence. Man has now created a conscious, intelligent thing which can read, write, speak, walk, draw, compose, and think, in quotation marks. Its impact has been compared to the discovery of fire, the invention of the wheel, the harnessing of electricity, or the development of the PC. The impact of AI will be intrusive, pervasive, disruptive, affecting every person in every corner of society, thus impacting the way we learn, earn, and play. The bottom line is that we're faced with a giant technological challenge. Higher education must help society to understand the scope of the problem so they can better navigate the possible options, consider the risks, and make ethical choices. Higher education must also play a critical role in influencing the leaders and educating the academics and regulators in relation to the kind, direction, ethics, and applications of research. Leaders in the field applaud the potential of AI for good. In healthcare, AI may be better able to diagnose health issues more accurately, more swiftly, and more cheaply. And for many diseases, provide new cures which have long eluded us, thus improving access to quality healthcare. In art, AI has shown its resourcefulness by generating an infinite number of unsupervised, dreamlike images, drawing on a database of paintings dating over centuries and composed by multiple artists. In education, AI can improve research output and the efficiency of document production. ChatGPT was introduced in 2002 and is being used fairly widely to generate speeches and articles and even students' assignments. In entertainment, AI can create new forms of art and artistry, presented various forms, looking, speaking, and acting like human beings. On the other hand, experts also note the potential for harm. In defense, unregulated AI, like nuclear power, has unimaginable destructive potential. AI may make things smarter, more efficient than ourselves, leading to significant job losses. Because of unknown elements, AI may also pose an existential threat, since it may lead to a very extinction. AI may also pose a phenomenological threat, leading us to be unsure about what is real or fake in news, movies, and entertainment. So important is AI that in Dubai, there's a ministry for AI. UWI needs to make the hard choice to establish AI centers dedicated to research, education, and training, and even commercialization for the researchers, creators, consumers, and regulators of this technology. Biomedical technology. Over the years, biomedical technology has expanded from the production of prostheses, implants, artificial internal organs, and replacements for body parts, to novel equipment for diagnosing and treating medical conditions. Agriculture is coping with cloning from somatic cells, genetically modified food, and even with the hitherto unimaginable 3D printing of meat. Big data. Today, there's the opportunity to compile massive biometric databases and big data algorithms from millions of computer users transacting business, engaging in education, or enjoying entertainment. These can be used to suggest or even make choices for us. It brings to mind some objections to the rollout of the digital national ID cards in Barbados, and some of the fears expressed that big data algorithms might create powerful digital dictatorships which watch us, own us, and can abuse and misuse the data. Many people are suspicious, feel exposed, and vulnerable. In the face of these challenges, it may be useful to consider 3 deliberately provocative questions raised by Harari in his book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. 1, what will happen when climate change triggers ecological catastrophe? 2, what will happen when computers outperform humans in more and more tasks and replace them in an increasing number of jobs? And 3, what will happen when biotechnology enables us to upgrade humans and extend lifespans? My answer: to accelerate the path to progress, slow the process of getting to catastrophe, and even alter the trajectory of change, education is perhaps the single most important tool in this survival toolkit, and UWI has a key role to play in the Caribbean. It must redouble its effort, resources, research, and education in preparing the Caribbean community in particular to better understand, manage, and address the challenges emerging from shifting demographics, climate change, life-changing information and communication technology, as well as to tune into the changing global financial architecture. Finally, are you ready for the dessert and sweet wine? In closing, trusting that human greed, power, self-interest, ambition, creativity, and unbridled curiosity will be checked by ethics and morality, tempered by respect for the common good, and steered by regulations and commitment to the survival of the planet. I choose to dream, vision, or even prophesy, depending on how the predictions turn out. Calypso lovers who have been around long enough will remember Crazy's lengthy and well-known calypso, In Time to Come. Without his permission, I venture to offer for your consideration a few additional lines relevant to our university. In time to come, Open campus may become a forgotten part of our history. Using AI, Global Campus will achieve operational efficiency. In time to come, in a few seconds, ChatGPT will write a 1-hour lecture. Those doing this for a living forced to find an invention. In time to come, UWI campuses will go fully green. Non-communicable diseases will decrease as people get lean. In time to come, AI will set and mark examinations. UE will lead the world in climate change mitigation. In time to come, centenarians will register to study computing. UWI will be fully open to seniors for upgrading and retooling. In time to come, preteens will register direct from school. The study of ethics will be the written rule. In time to come, Global Campus will have the largest enrollment, with students dispersed on every continent. In time to come, UE will offer courses in ecotherapy. For cutting-edge research, UE will be the repository. In time to come, age and gender data will become irrelevant. That section on all forms will have gone totally blank. In time to come, beaches will be free of sargassum weed through research and development by UWI's lead. In time to come, UWI's library collections will include avatars, lifelike, walking, speaking, interacting former vice chancellors. In time to come, no A&E's long waiting time. Algorithms and smartphones will work just fine. Worldwide AI doctors will be direct online. In time to come, humanoids will usher every visitor, and UWI will have a female vice chancellor. A 75-year-old UWI can look ahead with optimism to decades of new growth and reinvention, as well as to the offer of new exciting courses and programs, new educational content, and novel modes of delivery to an extremely diversified pool of learners. At the same time, an aging 75-year-old human, though a little terrified, can also find hope and comfort. It is my belief that embracing the possibilities of information and medical technology, coupled with a positive outlook, a good dose of flexibility, and an attitude of creativity and optimism, one can weather the storms of climate change, navigate the ravages of aging, and survive the risks of biomedical technology while enjoying the quality of life abounding in the limited number of years which lie ahead. For the institution and for the individual, the journey can continue to be exciting, enriched by facing new challenges, making hard choices, and embracing ongoing changes. It may surprise you that in both instances, I think that the best is yet to come. But lingering with us, the following hard choices still remain. 1, how will UWI obtain the resources needed to compete successfully in the global university arena amid the tremendous technological developments? 2, in spite of rankings, how will UWI maintain or improve its quality as it responds to the needs of the market and competes with alternative sources of knowledge transfer? 3, how will UWI find and target the niche markets which will bring it the greatest returns? 4, as it responds to current issues, how will UWI balance the choices among teaching, research, and commercialization? And 5, how will the global campus continue to manage and advance the goals of geographical outreach, excellence, efficiency, openness, and diversity? I thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Roberts. And in your words, thank you for the meal. It was delicious. And I'm sure we all have some really good questions to ask. For me, it took me back to a time when I did not know the university, and as such, I have learned quite a bit. But I do believe we may have some questions or some comments from our participants. And let me see, is there anyone, please, if you have a question, just raise your hand. I should be able to see. Do we have anyone? In the chat we have, I'm indeed satisfied with the meal. Excellent presentation, brilliant lecture. Prof, I think you have, I think they're all full. I don't see any questions coming at us at all. I see. Yes, Dr. Severin?
Yes, let me shed some light on myself. Well, I am really moved by this lecture, and I have to say to you, Prof, that the timing is opportune at the eve of our mid-cycle review. We got in the Global Campus, formerly the Open Campus, in 2019, the maximum 7 years. And due to the COVID, the mid-cycle review was shifted somewhat. So on the 13th and 14th, we will be in the throes of all of this. And to listen to the backdrop and the context and the milieu that you have given to us, I really feel that, you know, with the funding or lack of funding as it is, we have come a very long way. And I think this lecture needs to be aired on UETV. This lecture needs to be aired throughout the university, because I do not think it is very keenly and well appreciated that all of what we have achieved has been achieved without seed money, without capitalization, without funding. The other interesting factor, and I think what rushes at me forcibly and unequivocally, is that the more things change, the more they remain the same. You mentioned, Prof, that there was that ownership by the quote-unquote campus countries or brick and mortar countries. Jamaica of Mona, Trinidad and Tobago of St. Augustine, and Kayville, you know, or Barbados of Kayville. Herein lies the conundrum that the dispersed, but the truly authentic pan-Caribbean part of the university faces. That is lack of one person or one government or one jurisdiction feeling responsible for it. And therefore, we are everywhere but nowhere. And no one has within his, and let me use local vernacular, his yard or her yard, any feeling of awkwardness or embarrassment if anything goes wrong. For instance, delays in salary and that sort of thing, because we are everywhere. So it is a very difficult task. And while I speak, I want to pay tribute to the staff of the Global Campus and formerly the Open Campus, who have carried that burden of not having owners, with one or two, with a few exceptions. And I also want to post this, really thank the governments who actually take that ownership, because without them, we would be in even worse circumstances. So I sort of question, but I want to really thank you for bringing home in very, I think, in very delish style, delish, tasted well, our phenomenon. There's just one gap, one error, Prof, if I should say so publicly. You did say that you were close to 75. I'm wondering whether that wasn't an error a slip of the tongue, because you probably meant 57, but certainly not 75. I say that without any attempt to flatter. Vivian, you really look well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Severin. We do have a question for you, Prof. How do you envision UWI Global Campus working with the national community colleges to strengthen relationships? In the wake of constraints in financial resources, what most critical strategy would you recommend for UWI to work with other regional education bodies such as the CXC and the Council of Legal Education? And that's coming from Ed Walker. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me though? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you. Go right ahead.
Yes. Well, the first part of it is easy because it is a matter of continuing, not reinventing the wheel. That is to say, how can UWI work with the colleges and national colleges, community colleges, national universities? And that is to continue what they have been doing. Because the reason Antigua was able to become a campus of UWI was because over the years, Antigua had been franchising programs from UWI. And Antigua, like many other institutions, had developed programs. They weren't too much in the associate degrees, but many other people had developed associate degrees, which had been assessed by UWI and fed into degree programs so that people could do a part of their qualifications at home, you know, and complete, do in a year or two, do the completion at a UWI campus. So I think that model already exists and can be refined and expanded and so on, massaged, so that you can get more out of less. You can actually, you know, it's a more economical way of getting people qualified. The second part I'm forgetting. I remember the last part had to do with legal education, but what was the other?
Well, the first part you did answer, how you envision UWI working with the community campuses to strengthen the relationship. And then it spoke about in the wake of our financial resources, what is the most critical strategy would you recommend for UWI to then work with other regional education bodies?
Right, and you did mention CXC.
Yes, CXC and the Council of Legal Education.
Yes, and I believe that it should be, well, I believe that all the bodies should be looking at collaborating. And know that you can do things electronically. Know that you don't have to do things face to face.
Right.
It's conceivable that examinations can be jointly set. You know, there are ways of not reinventing the wheel. Mm-hmm. We have a way in the Caribbean of reinventing the wheel and starting from scratch with everything and doing it on our own. And we do it 14 times, 14 slightly different ways. And I think in all of these regional approaches, there are ways that we can collaborate to both deliver and examine to make it more cost effective. And also, I think there's a role for AI. I mean, AI is going to be a game changer. Yeah. And all the institutions will have to get on board and see how they can manage it, how they can use it to their advantage. In my little words I was adding to the Calypso, I was really serious. I do feel that AI can be useful in developing courses, in setting exams, in marking exams, and that it can be responsibly used.
And yeah, thank you. And I think the issue we all have is that we're afraid of it because we're afraid of, and I guess afraid because we don't understand it. But I would like to agree with you as well that once we get to know more about AI, we can definitely use it to our advantage. So thank you so much for that. Prof, all I'm seeing is everybody's so full from all of your, I see another question. would you say that the articulation of community college programs with those offered by the GC was not pursued with sufficient vigor? Global Campus. And would you agree that a more robust 2-by-2 arrangement would have made us stronger and more desirable in the eyes of the underserved? So back to the community colleges now and the relationship that we have.
Yes, I would say yes. I would answer in the affirmative. Yes, that it was not fully exploited, that there is room for continuing
Right.
and converting. There's a lot of, what should I say? Us and them. I think if there are ways, and no, I'm also going back to electronic, to internet, to working. If a lot of the work can be done, a lot of transparency can be achieved by working electronically with the colleges. And I think when UWI sees better what the colleges are doing, and when the colleges see better what UWI is doing, things will work. I remember one of the things we did in TLI, an experience I'll never forget, is that we were looking at the agriculture programs across the region. We got some funding and we got the members of staff from the Faculty of Agriculture in Trinidad, and we brought in all the colleges that were teaching agriculture and put them in a hotel for a weekend. And they sat down there and went through the programs. And having gone through them, at the end of it, there was a lot of articulation achieved simply by spending the time and bringing the people together, so that you're not dealing with numbers and strangers. You're dealing with real people and with real programs, talking to each other, working through, ask questions, answer questions. And we were able to achieve a lot from that. Saying, no, we don't have to physically bring people in a room. You can chat online and achieve the same objective. So I think there is room, much more room for greater collaboration and to prevent people from repeating things that they've done. And those who know me well will know that my pet peeve is prior learning assessment. And I really believe that we are losing opportunities to bring on board people who have educated themselves through their work experiences. And we're still telling them they're to come and start from scratch and spend 4 years doing a degree when they have done half or more of what is being taught on the job. So there is that too.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering that. I'm being reminded that actually at the Global Campus, we are now using AI in the academic programming department. So we've started the ball rolling. And one of the things that you said is, and throughout our meal tonight, you have showed us that when the UWI is faced with a challenge, the UWI find a way around it. And Prof, I think as the Global Campus continues with the many challenges and the UWI continue, I'm sure as we work through some of the recommendations and suggestions and some that you've brought to us, that we will bring ourselves around again and move forward for another 75 years. I think we have no more questions. And at this point, I would like to bring this lecture to a close. And I would like to thank you so much, Professor Roberts. The whole meal, from appetizer to the dessert was just so filling. I don't think anybody is going for dinner after this. I think we are quite comfortable. And but we really would like to say thank you. We appreciate listening. We appreciate the way that you brought the information to us. It was clear, straightforward, and we all really enjoyed it. And we want to thank you for being here with us tonight. I also would like to thank all of our participants for joining us. It was really wonderful seeing everyone. My tech person, I do apologize for the video. We're not sure what happened there, technology, but you know, as we continue in the world of technology, something always goes wrong. So I'd like to apologize for not showing the video, but next time we will show it. Yes, there will be a recording. And I want to thank everybody. Everyone, good night. Have a pleasant night. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair. Excellent job, Prof. Roberts.
Right.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Have a good-
Blessings, Professor